On May 6, 2025, WeightWatchers filed for bankruptcy. 62 years of diet plans, point systems, and weekly meetings dissolved in a Delaware courtroom under more than $1 billion of debt. 6 months later, on November 21st, Eli Lilly crossed $1 trillion in market value. The first healthcare company in history to get there, and only the second American company outside of tech to do it at all. One class of molecules caused both events. This is not really the story of a weight loss drug. It is the first demand shock in modern economic history, delivered through a prescription. A molecule that reprices appetite itself, and the money is not flowing where you think. GLP-1 drugs imitate a gut hormone that tells your brain you are full. Novo Nordisk's Ozempic was approved for diabetes in 2017. Wegovy followed for obesity in 2021. Eli Lilly answered with Mounjaro, then Zepbound. Then adoption went vertical. In May 2024, a KFF poll found 6% of American adults were actively taking a GLP-1 drug. 18 months later, the same pollsters asked again. 12%, 1 in 8 American adults, tens of millions of people, were currently on one. Current use had doubled in a year and a half. 18% had tried one at some point. And half of the adults taking them say they are difficult to afford. They pay anyway. That is what economists call inelastic demand, and it is the rarest thing a market can find. The numbers broke every scale Pharma used to measure itself. In 2023, Novo Nordisk's market value passed the entire annual output of Denmark. The company became worth more than its home country's GDP. It overtook LVMH as the most valuable company in Europe. Denmark's own statistics office calculated that without the pharmaceutical industry, the Danish economy would have shrunk that year. One molecule was carrying a nation. The sales curve explains why. In 2024, Novo and Lilly sold more than $40 billion of GLP-1 drugs from just 2 active ingredients. Ozempic alone did $17.5 billion. Wegovy grew 86% in a single year. Then Lilly took the lead. In 2025, Mounjaro and Zepbound brought in $36.5 billion, more than half of Lilly's $65 billion in revenue, which itself grew 45% in 1 year. For 2026, the company is guiding to more than $80 billion. Wall Street did the math, hence the trillion. So what actually powers the machine? 3 gears. First, the drugs work at levels medicine had never seen outside of surgery. In Lilly's SURMOUNT-1 trial, patients on the highest dose lost up to 20.9% of their body weight, 1/5 of a human body. Second, the market quietly redefined what the product is. In the SELECT trial, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, semaglutide cut major cardiovascular events, heart attacks, strokes, cardiovascular deaths, by 20% in people without diabetes. That single result moved GLP-1s from vanity purchase to chronic disease infrastructure. It is the reason Medicare now covers them for obesity, for the first time ever. Third, and this is the gear investors love, the economics behave like a subscription. In real-world data, roughly half of the patients who lost weight and then stopped were back above their starting weight within a year. The product works while you pay. That is why supply became an arms race. Novo's parent foundation bought the contract manufacturer Catalent for $16.5 billion. Lilly answered with $27 billion for 4 new American plants, doubling its U.S. investment since 2020 to more than $50 billion. Its CEO calls it the largest pharmaceutical manufacturing expansion in American history. Follow where the value actually moved. The obvious winners: Lilly, first to $1 trillion. Denmark, whose fastest economic growth in years is driven by a single drug maker. Even Nestlé adapted, launching Vital Pursuit in 2024, the first mainstream food line designed as a companion for GLP-1 users. Portion-aligned frozen meals under $5. The losers sit mostly outside pharma. WeightWatchers, bankrupt. Grocery carts, measurably smaller. A Cornell numerator study of household purchase data found that families with one GLP-1 user cut grocery spending 5.3% within 6 months. Savory snacks fell 10%. Walmart's chief executive says the company already feels the margin pressure. Airlines may end up winning on someone else's prescription. Jefferies estimates the 4 biggest U.S. carriers could save up to $580 million a year in jet fuel if average passenger weight falls 10%. But here is the twist nobody priced in. The biggest loser so far is the company that started it all. Novo Nordisk peaked near $570 billion. By mid-2026, it was worth around $200 billion, close to 2/3 of its value erased. Its CEO pushed out in May 2025, while the market it invented kept growing. In the first head-to-head trial, Lilly's molecule beat Novo's on weight loss. Better molecule, better supply, better story. The crown migrated in 18 months. Which sets up the real question. Is this a durable market or a peak? The bulls point to arithmetic. Goldman Sachs models 15 million Americans on these drugs by 2030, and after obesity pills went mass market, raised its forecast to $114 billion a year. Morgan Stanley sees up to $190 billion by 2035. The pill is the argument. Oral Wegovy launched in January 2026, showing 16.6% weight loss with full adherence. Lilly's Foundayo, a once-a-day tablet, no injection, no refrigeration, was approved on April 1st, 2026, starting at $149 a month, $50 for Medicare patients. Remove the needle and the cold chain, bulls argue. An obesity treatment could scale like statins did, to hundreds of millions of people. Among adults not yet on the drugs, 22% tell KFF they are interested. The skeptics point to 2 leaks in the boat. First, persistence. In a study of 125,000 patients, nearly 2/3 of users without diabetes quit within the first year. A subscription business where most customers cancel inside a year, they note, is not much of a subscription. Second, price. The White House deals of November 2025 cut starting injection prices to $350, trending toward $245. Then the patents fell. In March 2026, semaglutide went off patent in India, China, Brazil, and Canada. Indian manufacturers launched generics within weeks. Analysts project generic prices could sink toward $15 a month. If the price drops 90%, skeptics argue, revenue can shrink even while users multiply. And they offer Novo's collapse as Exhibit 1. Even Goldman has whiplash. Its 2030 forecast went from $100 billion up to $130, down to $95, back up to $114. When the best resourced forecasters on Earth keep redrawing the curve, the honest reading is this. The market is real, and its size is genuinely unknown. Here is what does not depend on which side wins. Appetite is now a priced variable in the global economy. Food companies are reformulating for smaller stomachs. Grocers are modeling smaller baskets. Airlines are modeling lighter planes. Denmark is managing the risk of a one-molecule economy. Remember, without pharma, its GDP would have contracted. And for the first time, the American government is a bulk buyer of Appetite itself. Medicare coverage at a $50 copay puts these drugs within reach of tens of millions of people. So watch one number, the monthly price of a dose. $350, $245, $149, $15. Every step down converts the molecule from a luxury for the few into a staple for the many, and shifts the shock from pharma's income statement onto every industry that ever profited from excess consumption. The question that decides the next 5 years is not whether these drugs work. 20% of body weight says they do. The question is whether people stay on them once staying costs almost nothing. Because the 20th century built an economy around the human appetite. The 21st just discovered that appetite is negotiable.